titles at WrestleMania. He couldn't do it. He was having a hard time holding the titles up. He was having a hard, and you could actually see after the match ends and Roman hits Brock Lesnar with a spear. I have a feeling it was supposed to end in the guillotine, but because of the dislocated shoulder, Roman couldn't lock it in. I have a feeling it was supposed to end differently, but it was still a fun match. Roman picks up the win. We are now in the Roman Reigns unified title era. Roman Reigns stands tall to end WrestleMania 38. Very fun match, very fun show. WrestleMania 38, again, if I had to give it a grade, it would be 9.8 out of 10. Night 1 and 2 were so fun, great shows. I really enjoyed it. And it was basically like saying, hey, here's the legends of the past, here's the legends of the future. We're moving on to the legends of the future while the legends of the past are still around. We're going to the legends of the future. And that's how WrestleMania ends. Let's go on to your Raw after WrestleMania. This one was okay at best. This was definitely the low point of WrestleMania weekend. Cody Rhodes kicked off WrestleMania saying it wasn't a difficult decision to go back to WWE. He had no doubt when he was facing former WWE champion Seth Rollins that he was ready to go. He showed a picture from his dad at Madison Square Garden in 1977 and said his dad was supposed to be WWE champion, but because he won it by countout, he wasn't. And now Cody Rhodes is determined to get that title back for his dad. Very cool moment here. Seth Rollins then comes out to interrupt him. They both just look at each other. Cody puts out his hand. Seth shakes it. But you could agree, this was a very cool, it did feel right at the time, but this was a very cool show of respect. Very good. After this, you got number one contenders match, Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley versus Sasha Banks and Naomi for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Sasha Banks and Naomi would pick up the win. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley would be defeated, and Rhea Ripley would leave Liv in the ring after this match. This is starting to solidify the heel turn. And apparently next week they will get their title match because Rhea felt bad. I have a feeling they're going to lose this match, and then Rhea Ripley's going to attack Liv Morgan. And there's going to be a reason for that. I think they're going to build to a whole big thing at Rhea winning the title from Bianca Belair and then Liv being her challenger. I think that could be a great thing. We then got Kevin Owens coming out saying he had an excuse for WrestleMania, that he hurt his back in the gym lifting weights. And as he's saying he's trying to come up with his excuse, Elias comes out. But it's not Elias, it's Ezekiel, Elias' younger brother. And Kevin Owens calls him out. He's like, no, you're Elias. You're Elias. He goes, no, I'm his younger brother Ezekiel. And he says, you have 10 seconds to get out of my ring before I lay you out. Ezekiel didn't leave. Kevin Owens just leaves the ring without doing anything. Yay, Kevin Owens. You then got The Miz versus Dominic Mysterio. Miz picks up the win in a very, what I would call, squash match. And as The Miz is celebrating in the ring, you got music hitting. And you're like, who the fuck is that? Veer Mahan finally arrives on Raw. And you know what? He attacked Rey Mysterio and Dominic. Lays them both out in the ring. Very cool moment for Veer and a very good debut for Veer. Took too long, but it was cool. You then got Bianca Belair coming out saying she's ready for champion. She knows how hard it is to stay champion, but she's going to do it. And then she showed her swollen eye from a kick from Becky Lynch. Apparently Becky Lynch actually did make contact with Bianca Belair at WrestleMania, and she has a black eye because of this. Okay, promo. Nothing too big. After this, we got the NXT Championship match of Braun Breaker versus Dolph Ziggler. Braun Breaker picks up the win in a very lackluster match. Wasn't great. Picks up towards the end, but still nothing that you're like, oh, I got right home about this one. Braun Breaker picks up the win, new NXT champion. Why the fuck then? What was the point of standing and deliver? What the fuck was the point? Apparently there's going to be a rematch tonight between Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And the Toxic Attraction for the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, and I could see them dropping into them. What the fuck was the point of the championships changing or staying at Stand and Deliver then? After this, Bobby Lashley came out with MVP to a huge pop. Everyone's so happy to see MVP and Bobby Lashley back together, including myself. I love MVP. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and this was actually one of my first times seeing him live. I saw him at WrestleMania, and that was it. So seeing MVP back in the ring was awesome. Almost then came out and said Lashley beating him was a fluke, and MVP said he almost wants a rematch. What's going to happen? And as they stared off in the ring, Bobby Lashley gets turned on. MVP turns on Bobby Lashley, beats him down. Oh, this was stupid in my opinion. I don't know why MVP would do this. You turn on a former WWE champion for a stupid ripoff of the Great Khali? I don't know. That didn't make sense to me. We then got Rhea Ripley telling Liv Morgan about their match next week for the Women's Tag Team Championships. And then we get Queen Zelina Vega and Carmella. We're supposed to have a match with Shayna Baszler and Natalya, but that never came to fruition as Queen Zelina blamed Carmella for losing the Tag Team Championships, and she turns on her. They are no longer a team, and they were fighting over Corey Graves, kind of. So that was a fun little one. I wonder if they'll really include the wedding in, like, Drake Maverick and the 24/7 championship. I wonder if there was no 24/7 championship, by the way, the whole WrestleMania weekend. That was weird to me. After this, we got Austin Theory and the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos versus the Raw Tag Team Champions, RK Bro and Finn Balor. By the way, shout out to Randy Orton, man. He's loving this face run. He was actually on the ropes during Finn Balor's entrance doing the oh. It was awesome. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I just looked. I didn't have time to pull out my phone because it was like a split second, but it made me laugh my ass off. Austin Theory and SmackDown Tag Team Champions pick up the win. Theory pins Balor again. I guess this is going to be Theory's next feud. After this, Edge came out to deliver a promo and told why Damian Priest joined Edge. Damian Priest then said he is officially pledging his loyalty to Edge. AJ Styles came out and went to go attack them, but Edge and Priest get the upper hand. They go to hit a concerto on AJ Styles. Shane Helms and Adam Pearce come out to make the save as authority figures, and actually a thank you Shane Helms chant broke out. That was funny. We then got the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy in a Texas Tornado match. Nothing to write home about. Nice, cool little match. Nothing too big. Street Profits pick up the win. You knew it was going to have to happen. We then get Roman Reigns delivering his promo saying, "What's next for me? You'll find out Friday on SmackDown in a whole nother state. Not the Raw after WrestleMania, which is supposed to be one of the biggest shows of the year for WWE. No, you'll find out next week." And you can see Roman Reigns actually struggling to lift the titles. So it's clear he still has a dislocated shoulder. And I guess he hopes it for heel on SmackDown. And that's why he didn't do anything on Raw except just cut a promo. He finally ends it with saying he is one of the best things to ever happen in WWE, and he tells the crowd to acknowledge him. Very good way to end Raw, but Raw kind of sucked this week. I'm not going to lie, it sucked. The best part was Cody Rhodes coming out. Cody Rhodes started Raw off with one line. He just goes, "So what do you guys want to talk about?" He then got a dark main event, by the way, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. Great match, fun match. They hugged, shook hands, because they are really... He has said that Kevin Owens is one of his best friends in the world. So this was cool to see them finally have a match. Wow, this episode of Wrestling Made Simple is going long, folks. I'm sorry to the people who I've told it's like a 45-minute, hour-long podcast, but hey, it's WrestleMania, so it's a WrestleMania special. After the match, he said, no matter where he's been or what he said, there's one thing that has always stayed true. He's always loved the fans, and he said who's going to be at next year's WrestleMania, and a travel package chant started. He said, who's from Texas? Who's from here? Who's from out of the country? And there was everyone, and he says, I am going to stay here until security kicks me out of the building because I'm willing to meet every single one of you. And you know what he did? People were taking pictures. I gave him my card for my other business, which is cigars. I know because I know Cody Rhodes smokes cigars. So I'm like, hey, if you ever find yourself here, come in. I'll give you you can have a great smoke on me. Cody Rhodes was very happy for that. He was a great guy, amazing guy. I've bashed on him before, but I really turned the page on him. I turned the page on him in his last few days of AEW, and maybe it's because he joined WWE. Maybe I'm just that kind of mark. I don't know, but Cody Rhodes at WWE is awesome. He is awesome here. And that was WrestleMania weekend. WrestleMania weekend is now officially over. We are done with WrestleMania. We now start on the build to Backlash. So, build to Backlash is always the WrestleMania pay-per-view after WrestleMania. And it came back in 2016. This was basically when the brand split started. This is why they needed title matches. They needed everything to be set for it. So Backlash 2016 is a very fun pay-per-view to watch. It is different. It's fun. It's because there's new titles. There's titles changing hands. All the titles were set up for this show. To kick it off on the pre-show, you got Baron Corbin versus Apollo Crews. This was Baron Corbin's really first ever feud in WWE and on the main roster. Baron Corbin has a nice little match with Apollo Crews that lasts 9 minutes. Baron Corbin picks up the win with the end of days, of course, in a nice 9-minute match. And then the real show kicks off with a 6-pack elimination challenge for the women's tag team, for the women's SmackDown Women's Championship. You got Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Natalya, Nikki Bella, Carmella, and Becky Lynch. First wrestler eliminated was Alexa Bliss by Natalya. Then you had Naomi eliminated by Natalya with a sharpshooter. Natalya gets eliminated by Nikki Bella with a Rack Attack 2.0. Carmella eliminates Nikki Bella with a roll-up in the 12 minutes. And then finally at the 14-minute, 40-second mark, Becky Lynch locks in to disarm her and becomes your first ever women's SmackDown Women's Champion. And then we go to the tag team qualifying match, the final match in the tag team tournament. Let's start off with, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 tag teams in this match, and now it's down to 3. The Hype Bros versus the Usos, and you have Heath Slater and Rhino. Usos pick up the win here over the Hype Bros, Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder by submission. You then get a great Intercontinental Championship match between The Miz and Dolph Ziggler, which ended in pinfall after he was sprayed by Maurice with some white powder into his eyes. The Miz picks up the win and retains his title here. After this, you got Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton in a forfeit. Bray Wyatt defeated Randy Orton by forfeit in 10 seconds. This would basically be the start of Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton becoming a kind of tag team. It would be really that big start. But Kane would then come out and have a no-holds-barred match against Bray Wyatt. Pinfall, Kane wins, picks up the win over Bray Wyatt. This would lead to SummerSlam, where they would have their Ring of Fire match. And if you haven't seen that match, go watch it. It's just fun. It's just a fun match. You then get, in your semi-main event, Heath Slater and Rhino defeating the Usos to become the first ever WWE SmackDown Tag Team Champions in a 10-minute classic match. Very fun match to watch. If you get a chance, go back and watch this match. And then finally, in your main event of the evening, AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose showing why they were some of the best feuds on SmackDown at the